dedicated camera, but you take photographs with your phone, which are way more personal to you because it's a trusted thing. It's you have your emails there, you have your messages from loved ones, you have Candy Crush, okay, all these things. But the key thing about connected cameras is the first device in the history of photography where you can create and consume on the same device. There's no one here who has a Leica or a Fuji where they see another person's photos unless you put somebody else's SD card in and go, what the hell is this? I don't remember this photo. This is the difference. This is why mobile photography has become an incredible tool for photography. This is why the guys here were talking before. You can sell mobile phones, but you can equally sell cameras now because everyone who carries a mobile phone starts to think about photography and is interested in it. I didn't shoot very much film photography. I do now, have a couple of point and shoots, but I didn't shoot film photography before. I shot a lot of mobile photography. This is not the death of photography. This is a gateway drug. Here's a long list of stuff. That first number, which is hidden there, is 2008. So that's when I first started taking photographs with a mobile phone. Now you guys are all reading through this, but I'll let you read through this, and I'll just, in my monotone voice, just say what it was. But 2008, first mobile phone camera, iPhone 3GS. Who had one of those? Hands up. You poor buggers. That was hell to take photos with. I mean, you couldn't control exposure. If you learn the trick that if you press the shutter button, it doesn't actually take a photograph, it's when you let go it takes a photograph. I used to wander around with the shutter depressed, waiting for a photograph, and they go, missed, okay. I took a lot of really bad photos. I mean, you were taking like 1.3 megapixel photos, and they were overexposed and grainy, but I took a lot of photos. I took all the photos, that I've deleted, with that phone. I mean, that's the key thing, is it let me take a lot of photos and make a lot of mistakes. But then I had a photo exhibited in Berlin with a group called INEE. Has anyone heard of the INEE guys? A few? See, they were one of the first real websites, groups, who supported mobile photography. They kind of missed the trick on Instagram, but they're still around. They've got an incredible computer algorithm which analyzes your images and will categorize them for potential stock or editorial use. So they've shifted from mobile photography into stock photography, which is you're seeing a lot of at the moment. So my photos went to Europe before I did, which is kind of annoying. So I was born in Sydney, I lived in Sydney, and I moved to London a few years ago. But I curated an Instagram competition, an Instagram exhibition at the Apple Store in Sydney. And it's really important in those early days, find people who are obsessed. I mean, this room is full of obsessed people, and I'm really happy for that. Like, you all are obsessed about photography. I mean, it's an incredibly unhealthy room, and that's very good. It's what we want. And since then, I've been curating photography shows at photo festivals. With the Head-On Photo Festival in Sydney, and in the UK now at Format Photo Festival, which is one of the largest in the Northern Hemisphere. A lot of it's always mobile images. I've taught at the Australian Centre for Photography, which is where I got all the flack, the early days of why are you bothering to teach mobile, the death of photography. Still is in some of your minds, I hope I'll change that possibly. And then I moved to London, and I got my first kind of commission job, and that was to shoot for Burberry in London, and they flew me to New York as well to shoot rock concerts with an iPhone. And when you're in the pit, and this is the stage here, okay, and there's 5, 6 guys or girls next to you, and they've all got their Canon, amazing lenses, USM lenses, and everything there. And there's a bloke with an iPhone. And they're like, "Hey, you've lost. What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm shooting for Burberry. This is the future." Really good fun. I got to see a lot of bands, and then I did something even more crazy. I founded a selfie school, which is about teaching people how to take selfies. I just became the uncoolest dude in the room. I should also mention I was an accountant, even less cool.
Wait, why do you teach a selfie school?
Why? Because it's the stupidest idea that I could come up with, and it's worked. So I wrote for Filter magazine, FLTR, which was the British General Photography's mobile magazine. So I worked with them, and I wrote for Time Lightbox from New York about what mobile photography can be for photojournalists, and I think that's changing even today. I just saw that the New York Times has a Instagram producer now. So they don't only produce stories for the web, they also create, they've got somebody who's producing their stories on Instagram stories with text and images. So that's a really interesting development. So I'm still working with Format Festival, and at the Tate Gallery I've done some teaching, some talking, and taught selfie school. And that's the last one. I'm just signed to a photo agency, which has been interesting. So I'm doing some work with Samsung at the moment. So all of this has been amazing experiences. Like we got to fill this whole house in Sydney with photographs, all taken with mobile phones. We never told anyone that the photos in there were taken with mobile phones until they were walking out. And it's really funny because as people are walking out, they go, "Oh, did you like it?" Yeah. They were shot with mobile phones. What? Okay. And they go back in. They have to have another look, because when you print an image, it loses its technological context. People don't believe you can take those with images, and I have printed images quite wide. So those are 3 of my images on Burberry's Instagram account when it only had 1 million followers. So it's quite hard to shoot rock concerts. Red lighting is the worst thing in the world, particularly on iPhone 5. Okay, it's hard, and I had to shoot something which didn't show any other brands, and they're all wearing Kicks and all these other brands, so you have to hide that. But street photography got me into the position to do this. Shooting street photography with an iPhone gave me the skills I needed to take these shots. Now this is the image which really started it all, and I'm really glad, Sheldon, you showed your incredibly bad image before, because this is worse, I hope. Sydney, probably 2010. Instagram wasn't around. We had a massive dust storm which came all the way across from the deserts in Australia, and it went over Sydney. The whole sky basically went orange, and I mean like end of the world orange. Everyone was waking up going like, what the hell, is going on here? So I told my brother, act like a zombie, and I will take the zombie apocalypse photo and I'll share that on Twitter. And now I've been using Twitter to look at how people responded to images. It wasn't a very good platform at the time. They don't have a link, so people had to click the link to see the image. No longer, it didn't even have images in there. But I could tell from twitpic.com, whatever, how many views an image had, which also then corresponded to how many people had reshared my image. At the time I was using hashtag iPhoneography, okay? Very important hashtag at the time. And I was used to seeing between 80 to 120 views, which was great. It gave me an indication of how an image was being perceived and then potentially shared, as a form of currency almost. This went to 3 million views within a short amount of time, and then it went up and up and up. And it was because I basically hashtagged Zombie Apocalypse Sydney, used all the right kind of tools for online. I was even getting people from Germany sending me messages saying, "Are you okay?" I don't know if that's German humour or not, but I think it might be. But this image gave me the first indication of what it meant to be the right place, right time, right image, and then the right time to share it. It's really about when I shared this and how I shared it. It made me realise just how prolific mobile sharing was going to be. And then I shot this in, I think, 2012 with an iPhone 4S. And the key thing here was as locking my exposure, pre-focusing, and having the ability to touch anywhere on the screen to take a photograph. So we've gone from 3GS, where I can't control anything, to iPhone 4S, which is probably still my favourite iPhone camera sort of setup. It was the first one to really have a nice dynamic range, which you can kind of see in some of the blacks up there. And it allowed me to really control how I was shooting. This is shot kind of up at a weird angle, not actually seeing what's in the frame. I'm not looking through the viewfinder. There's no viewfinder on a phone, if you haven't noticed. But I was shooting this space in Sydney for about half an hour, 45 minutes while the light disappeared. So that's a Swarovski store with its all crystal exterior, sending light bouncing down back. The key thing here being her lips, that only pop of colour in the entire thing. There's also a creepy man up in the top left, which I didn't notice until like 2 years later. Weird things like that. And then in London, where there's not as much light, trying to work more with what you can do. Now Piccadilly no longer has these lights, so it's a nice thing. Mary Poppins just dropped by for one quick photo. It was very nice of her. But really what was the key for me was always having my phone with me. You know, I could always take a photograph. I would walk out after work in Sydney, or before I got to work, I would set my exposure and I would just shoot. And I would take bad photos every day. So many bad photos. You know, I'm better at deleting photos than most people, I think. You know, that's what I love. More shooting, cats, gets a lot of likes on Instagram. Mermaids. Horses. Kind of like the 4 horses of the apocalypse, but that's nice. Selfies. So what Derek Kim was saying before about getting yourself in images, I think it's actually quite important. If you look at like Lee Friedlander, his selfie series, you know, where he shot himself in storefronts and in various reflections, it actually reveals less about him than it reveals about him. You know, it actually makes more of a mystery, you know, which I think is really interesting. He didn't punch me. Thanks, Eric. And all of this is, you know, I started shooting street from about this distance to where you guys are. You know, I was never really up close. And then when I started sharing on Instagram, and I've been sharing on Flickr, I suddenly realized that I needed to get closer because the screen was small. You know, and I actually need to get much, much, much closer because otherwise there was no detail in an image. So I was suddenly getting closer and closer to what, you know, Eric's probably talked about a few times, until I was right in front of people. And for a few years, mobile phones were still not perceived as cameras, and I could get away with absolute murder. And now, if I get a mobile phone out and I go, just, you know, beyond 45 degrees, somebody will be like, what are you doing? You know? And that's just incredible to watch change, you know. And I think another thing is just always having it with you. You don't have to feel like, oh, where's my camera? I wish I had my camera. And I've probably had more external battery packs than most people as well. You know, you get a 1 meter cable, you feed it up through your sleeve in your shirt or whatever, and you can shoot for hours until the phone just dies from overheating. You can take it into events like this one. This is a pillow fight in Trafalgar Square. There's about 300 people all armed with pillows, all trying to hit each other. And now if you walk in there with a Leica, you're risking some serious money. Okay? And I did have my phone hit out my hand at this event. And I thought, that's it, goodbye, phone, smash. Luckily, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of feathers. And it happened at a point when there was already about 20 centimeters worth of feathers on the ground underneath me, so it just landed softly. I picked it back up and kept shooting. Really good event for shooting. Also, the iPhone doesn't have any external kind of vents other than, you know, you're not going to worry about dust getting in. I was sick for about 3 weeks after that. So really good event to shoot. As you were saying, you know, the protests, Sheldon, you know, you can really get in there and practice your craft. You know, it's a documentary street photography style. Notting Hill Carnival, which is a massive festival, about 3 million people go through it in London. I've never seen that many drunk people in my life not fighting. I'm from Australia, so, you know, it's great to see people getting along, but it also gives you an opportunity to really lay up, you know, really practice kind of seeing multiple elements in an image, and as you know, you're saying before, worry about where the border is. You know, it's what you exclude that makes a photograph, not what you include. And you know, what really got me into photography was the National Geographic photographers, Magnum. You know, and I got really annoyed. I was thinking, like, if these guys can take a decent image, I can as well. You know, and I can do it with a phone. That's what really got me started, being annoyed. So if you're annoyed, okay, that's great. You know, be frustrated, be determined that way. You know, I looked at Alex Webb's The Suffering of Light. There's one of them available for sale. There's someone out there. Don't buy it. It ruins you. You look at this book and it's the best photography you've seen, and you just look at it, and then for 3 weeks I couldn't pick up the phone, a camera. I'm always looking for kind of like elements that come together, you know, taking a step back or step forward, you know, really playing on what is it within the frame that is talking to, you know, you. And as Eric was saying, keep shooting. And I think one of the advantages with an iPhone is that you can pretend to be looking at a map, and you can go past something and come back again, you know. And that being unobserved is so powerful, you know, being both invisible, as Sheldon was saying, as in not existing, because you're totally within the zone, and also invisible to get something before you interact with the person is really incredible.
Go back?
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the best street photos I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, ballerinas in a library in Manchester is not a normal situation. So
Well, look at the guy in the top left corner with the yellow door. To me, that's like the cherry on top. That's like so good. And also the leading line from the ballerina's legs going to that guy in the... This is so good! So good!
Thank you.
I just had to say that.
That's right. I think really the key thing for me was light. Yeah, please, question.
Do you crop photos or do you put it?
Do I crop?
Crop these photos you take on a mobile?
These are full frame mobile images.
Yeah! Yeah!
No, I think cropping's fine. You know, in fact, shooting with an iPhone, because there's a bit of distortion in some of the corners, I do tend to sometimes zoom just a little bit. Not because there's, you know, I need to remove an element, because that distortion, if I can't correct it with a kind of like a correction tool, which there are many of, and Instagram's got its own now, you know, you're dealing with a small screen. What you've got to do is you've got to fill that small image with as much like information as possible. You know, no one wants like a watery, you know, bowl of noodles. Okay, thanks, pardon. You really want to have all the flavour you can get in there. Now that may mean getting closer. You know, if the photos aren't good enough, you're not close enough. Blah, blah. But whatever works, you know. And I think this is the thing. I mean, purists will say, don't crop, don't edit, you know, too much. Think of your audience, and this is why the connected camera is so important. You know, the audience is there in the palm of your hand. You know, they're not sort of distant to you. You know, see where we're at. Get started. Well, that cropped really nicely.
Ogsy, why does your shirt say Anti-Photo Club? I want one.
You have to buy them from a mate of mine in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
He's a photographer and an artist. Those two things do exist together. Okay, so using the right apps. Now everyone's mentioned Instagram. I think Instagram is a phenomenal app. It's not about photography, okay, first thing. Even the guys who made Instagram, and I've met a few of them, they say Instagram isn't about photography. So that's the first thing you have to remember. It's about a window to the world, okay? So a connected camera is the first step in learning that photography is a very strange word. Now, photography means something that needed to be discovered and described a long time ago, and now it doesn't really help us. You know, if I say photography and then someone says, yeah, I took a photograph, oh, I made a GIF out of it. Where's Ben? Put your hand up, Ben. There's Ben here, there's another Ben. No, Justin. Okay, I forgot the guy's name. That's terrible. Oh, he's not there. Yeah. So you take photographs, you turn them into GIFs. You know, the whole process of image making and sharing these days is really about it's about more than the simple word photography can describe, and I'll come to this a bit more. Now, the key thing with the connected camera is that the apps will change over time. I used to use Snapseed, hands up for Snapseed as an editing tool. Now, I used to use Snapseed. I tend to use VSCO now. They paid me to do something once. So
Yeah.
you know, being paid as a photographer, can you imagine? But equally, they gave me the ability to copy and edit and paste it over the other 20 photographs that I needed that edit done to. And Snapseed wasn't going to do that. I asked them to make a copy edit function tool, you know, and they weren't going to do that, so I used VSCO. But that's going to change, you know, and I think this is the key thing is, you know, some people buy a Leica and they get one lens and that's their camera for life, and that's a great philosophy. But with a connected camera, it's all about investigating new software, new algorithms, okay, new tools, the new iPhone, the new Samsung, the whatever. You know, it's really about using the new devices and playing with them to see what you can achieve. Okay, so when I'm shooting with an iPhone, I use Pro Camera 8, and when I'm using an Android, I use Camera FP5, all the manual camera functions. Now, if you have an iPhone, I can highly recommend Pro Camera. The guy who made it has done an incredible job. So if you're not sure which app it is, please come to me and I'll show you the icon so you don't end up buying some cheap knockoff sort of like Pro Camera 7 or whatever, okay, because they do exist. Phenomenal combination of functions which allow me to set exposure, focus, and use the whole screen as a shutter button. And now when you're using a mobile phone, you can't feel that depression, you know, you don't have it. You can use the volume buttons, but sometimes they're a little stiff. I know some people, Paul, For example, he uses the volume on the headphones. So if you want anti-shake, just use it as like a cable release. The cost is really minimal. It cost me like $5 for this Pro Camera app ages ago. I mean, that's less than a roll of film. And that has defined my photography. It's given me the ability to actually understand what Sheldon and F solves. Okay? Not that you can change it on an iPhone, but this is the great thing about connected cameras. The cost is minimal. You already spent money on a phone. You're not going to spend a lot more money on film and developing. A couple of apps is going to be 5, 10, whatever. All right. Let's see. Move forward. Okay, what are mobile habits? So this is the habits.
Nice.
Mobile habits. I know I'm really making sense when Eric gets excited.
Yep.
Take bad photos.
Yep.
Okay, now this is the same for any camera, but you can take more bad photos with a mobile phone than you can take with a film camera, because it costs less, and because you can delete them in the privacy of your own space. Okay, and what makes a good photographer is the bad photos they're taking, not the good photos. If you get the Magnum Contacts book, which I know some of you will have seen, it's so relieving to look at this book because they take bad photos, and then they take one good photo, and that's the one that you've seen that makes them famous. But really, it's about those bad photos they took either side of that. Delete bad photos. This is the other side of it. Just delete the images. If you don't like it, delete it. You will take more. If you're not sure about an image, chuck it into a folder which is review or something like that. But really, you've got to go through as many photos as you can. So your first 10,000 photos are your worst. Who's heard that quote before? I think it's the first 100,000 at least. Okay? And that doesn't mean that we're making more mistakes and we're worse. It means that we're making more mistakes faster and our learning curve is off the chart. So take more bad photos, okay? I really mean that. Go out and shoot stuff, make mistakes, which you can make them so cheap with the mobile, these things. But this is where the connected camera is very important. Eric said don't share anything for a month. Okay, I would say that the key thing is if you share an image which people who follow you don't like, you're just transitioning to a new audience. Okay. I've lost 50,000 followers on Instagram over the last 3 years.
Why?
Because I don't know. No, the reason is, I'll tell you why. I was on the suggested user list, which is great. It gives me a lot of followers. But what I wanted to do was not share images which made people like them. I didn't want those likes. I wanted to see how people reacted to bad images or to out of focus images. And I did get questions like, why the hell did you share an out of focus image? Oh, I wanted it to be out of focus. Yeah, but why? People don't understand that your choice, they don't understand that sharpness is not a definition of a good image. So really sharing images and what you think of at this point in time as a good image is important. Don't be afraid to lose followers, to get fewer likes if it's important to you as you're moving your photography, you're changing your photography. So then you share better images. Now if you go back through your own Instagram or Flickr feeds, at some point you're going to be like, I'm going to hide these images, or I'm going to delete these because these are not define me. And that's going to happen for the rest of your lives. You're just going to, we're all going to want to delete large portions of our online presence at some point, whether or not we can. So what are likes? Eric's covered this off. Likes are a form of motivation. So when the Instagram guys designed Instagram, they designed it using some techniques, some behavioral design techniques that they learned in Stanford University at behavioral design school. Back when BJ Falk taught them, really fascinating guy. So likes motivate you to share more images, which is great, okay, if you're trying to get people to use your platform like Instagram or Flickr. But ultimately, you can become a slave to these. You can feel like the number represents the value of an image, which is why Eric correctly said, don't fall into that trap. The other side, the other two elements were ability and triggers. Now, when you see the notification of a like, that's a trigger. And the ability, the earliest ability that they designed in Instagram was filters. Now, Sheldon provided us with horrible examples of filters. Really horrible. Oh my God, I'm so proud. I'm so glad you did. But that made people feel like they could share images which were interesting. You know, it gave people the ability to feel like they weren't making artistic decisions. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a large portion of this audience might think they look terrible, sure, but people have to learn, you know. So that does say curate who you follow, unfollow your friends, okay? This is the importance of a connected camera, okay? There are a lot of social networks out there that allow you to actually find your friends, speak to them, WhatsApp, line here, line, yeah. But you really need to continually go through a process of curating what you're seeing, because that's going to define what you're motivated by. That's going to define how you believe and perceive what is possible. Don't unfriend me yet or unfollow me yet. But really, it's very important because this is a camera which allows you to define what you find interesting in the world without even taking a photo. So I know this is fairly obvious, but your app and your hashtag, if you're not sure about how to best use those, just come and talk to me, because sometimes people don't know, what to really do with these. The app has to be simple. That's real estate. That's why my name's Ogsy, because there's a guy called Oliver Lang who does paintball in America for a living. And when I was Oliver Lang on social media, I used to get guys holding paintball guns following me. I mean, yeah. And there was also a DJ from Ibiza who's called Oliver Lang, so I get rave chicks paintball gun guys. So I had to change my name. So I chose Ogsy, which was the nickname that my cousins gave me. But it's simple. So the key thing here is to observe your audience. Now you are sharing images in real time, getting the actual perspective of where your audience is and what they're doing. Most photographers throughout history have had to walk around their own show opening, their gallery opening, and cringe massively as people drink free drinks and eat canapes and look at images occasionally. You are literally getting that real-time feedback about who's looking at your images. You're not getting where they're looking at your images. They might be in bed, on the bus, or on the train. Most likely on the toilet. Don't forget that, okay? That's very true. But really, you are now connected to a community. This is where the hashtag becomes very important. That iPhoneography hashtag in the early days really gave us, as a community, the ability to see what was possible. Because no one really knew what photography was possible with an iPhone at the time. Renzo's got the 24-hour project, and the way that it works is when you're shooting and it's like the 18th hour and it's freezing in London, okay, and you look at that hashtag and people are still shooting around the world, it feels good. You're part of a bigger thing. It makes you want to continue. It gives you the grit to be able to keep shooting and to push yourself. For example, when people are doing the Tour de France, and everyone knows what the Tour de France is? Yes? No? Okay, excellent. When guys are told, like you're injured, you're not going to be able to be in the front pack, the doctors will advise them to continue the race, because once you've completed the Tour de France, your body is no longer physically the same ever again. By pushing yourself that hard for that long, you will achieve something which you cannot do in any other way. And that's really why I think the 24-hour project is fascinating, because it pushes you photographically to continue to achieve a level of photography which you didn't know was possible. And that's an incredible thing. So I also curate through the Mobile Photo Network, but I would advise you to look first at the 24-hour project, because there's a lot more recent stuff there. So connected camera theory, I'm going to go into some charts and graphs now. I get introduced as a scientist, so I get to use some charts and graphs. So
yeah.
Anyone out there who feels tired, you're more than welcome to lie down, just chill out, okay, have a nap. Okay, we're going to go through some things. But what I want you guys to understand is why photography doesn't matter as a word. So in 1998, a few guys defined a concept called the experience economy, and essentially it covers what you guys enjoy doing. You guys enjoy this experience. You enjoy the experience of looking at photographs, and you enjoy the experience of taking photographs. Now those are all slightly separate things, but this is what you guys do every day and what you enjoy. Now, this is how they define it. If you are basically doing something actively, okay, and you're immersed, you're escaping where you are. So think of virtual reality, okay, with a gun involved as well, so you're shooting some zombies, that's there. Absorption and active participation, you can't learn anything without being actively involved, which is why photography is really something you learn through doing. Absorption and passive, think sitcoms, Friends, Seinfeld, right? Aesthetics, passive participation and immersion. So this is like where you're enjoying something, looking at a thing, okay? Now, I don't profess to completely understand what the hell is on the slide here, okay? But what it means for me as a connected camera photographer is that I'm going to be, through my images and through my stories and through what I do, I'm going to either be entertaining somebody, educating them by sharing images and telling them what apps I've used and how I shot things. I'm going to give them an image which allows them to look through their phone. So, for example, if you have an infinity point, if you've got a horizon, and a beautiful view, and you share that, that's the escapist, because somebody's no longer where they are. They're looking through their phone. They're in that blue sea, wonderful island space. And aesthetics as well, which allow people to look at things and enjoy their view. And this is really important because most of our senses are dominated by visual. None of us are here because we enjoy going around and recording the street and listening to the sounds of the street. We're street photographers, not street sound recorders. I know there's a few musicians here who might have done that. Sorry. But this is the interesting thing. So when I first started shooting street photography, which is down here, this says 2009, and I was sharing on Twitter, and then Instagram kicks off around 2011. And the interesting thing is how much Twitter has had to dovetail back to be like Instagram by including images. And back in mid-2016 when I was looking at this, and thank you Google Trends for a really nice little chart, you can see that this was the point where Instagram overtook Twitter, and of course this is big money. This is huge money. This is not a small part of it. And of course then Snapchat appears. This is really important. This is showing you where the audience is. They don't want to read, they want to see. They don't want to be told, they want to know. And that's something that happens with visuals. Equally, Sheldon, your images, Hipstamatic, oh my god, on max settings.
Yeah.
And that's really what was incredible. These guys got 3 million funding, they were rolling in it, It was incredible watching these guys just develop an app and have millions of dollars, And then the SEO came along. And Snapseed. Snapseed was bought by Google. That's not a bad way to make money either. Get Google to buy you. They tried to put Google Plus as one of the top sharing options in Snapseed. Yeah, that really worked. ViscoCam recently got $40 million in seed funding, in Series A funding. Like that's just a drop in the ocean of what they could potentially get. And you guys, I'm spending money on this stuff. The reason I'm spending money on this stuff is because I want to buy the tools of photography, and these are the best tools. These are the tools that allow me to create, whether it's street photography, whether it's making my selfies look better, and there are apps.